Hey students, Mr. LeBlanc here. Welcome back to class. Welcome to this beautiful day of learning. Um, Today we're going to do more of a review on the Texas Revolution. We already went over Texas Revolution and how it ultimately led to the Mexican-American War. We talked about how this idea of manifest destiny and the desire for Americans to own all the land from the Atlantic to the Pacific helped lead them to want to obtain Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to give you just a few quick hits you should already know, but just in case, here we go. So, Mexico wants to secure its borders. Okay, there's a lot of crime going on in this vacant land that no one owns or lives on, and that's known as Texas. So they open it up and they say anyone they want can live there. They just have to abide by three simple rules. First rule, you have to be Catholic. Uh, they have a national religion at this point. National religion was Catholicism. So if in order to live in part of Mexico, you have to be Catholic. Second one, you have to speak Spanish. Third one is you have to become a Mexican citizen. Like in order to live in the country, you need to be a Mexican citizen. Kind of makes sense. Massive amounts of Americans move to Texas because, well, it's free land. Like I would move for free land. Yeah, probably, maybe. I don't know. My wife doesn't know. So yeah, those three things. Texas becomes very populated to the point where the Mexican government actually gets a little bit nervous and scared, and they say, okay, enough is enough. Stop coming. We do not want any more. And they say they shut down their borders to Mexico. Um, Obviously, we as Americans do not listen. Like, we don't listen. So we didn't worry about speaking Spanish. We didn't worry about the Catholicism aspect, and we didn't worry about becoming Mexican citizens. We basically had a massive chunk of Mexico that was lived in and inhabited by American citizens who spoke English and just acted like Americans. So this guy, as people began talking, they came up with the idea, hey, we all speak American, we all speak English, and we're acting more and more like an American state. Why don't we ask Mexico for our independence? So, as people ask for Mexico's independence, there's a lot going on in Mexico at the time period. Santa Anna becomes president, and his first act as president is to get rid of the Constitution and the government and become a dictator. He declares that he's going to be a dictator for the rest of his life, and at that point, he ends up throwing an American citizen in jail. Again, this is Austin. Austin goes down there and asks, he becomes a speaker for Americans, and he says, basically, we want our independence. What do we have to do? Can we buy it from you? Can you sign off on this? We all speak English. We are not Catholic, and we're not Mexican citizens. Austin gets thrown in jail, and Santa Anna decides he needs to regain or insert Mexican authority in that state. So he sends his army up. At the same time in Texas, while Santa Anna's army is coming up, Texans are meeting and discussing like ways that they can become their own independent state and get rid of Mexico. This is called the Texas Revolution. And Santa Anna begins taking over parts of Texas. So small militias or army begin defending and preparing for what they think is going to be a war. One spot they decide to defend is a place called the Alamo, and it was the person who was in charge of the Alamo was Lieutenant Colonel William Barrett Travis. Now, Travis was prepared to die for this idea of Texas becoming its independent state. Legend has it that he took his sword out and he drew a line in the dirt or sand, and he said, those prepared to give everything they have for the freedom of the cause, please step with me. And he had about 200 people cross that line to defend the Alamo. Santa Anna eventually heard about this and said, I definitely need to make an example of it. Santa Anna surrounded the Alamo, and he said, surrender to me. And basically, Travis said no. We are either going to be victorious or we're going to die trying, but surrender is not an option. The siege lasts 12 days. Eventually, the Alamo runs out of supplies. They have no more ammunition, and the Mexican army does eventually break into the Alamo. True to Santa Anna's word, he did kill every single person inside, which is about 185 people. He left no survivors or no prisoners of war. This was a wake-up call to the Texas Revolution. A lot of people began using the battle cry, "Remember the Alamo," and they were prepared to do anything they needed to beat Santa Anna. Sam Houston um, led an army and actually surprised Santa Anna in the middle of the night and surrounded his army. And Santa Anna was forced to surrender and was brought back to Mexico, and basically, against his will, had to sign over the rights to Texas and say it is its own independent nation or state. We'll call it state. Sam Houston becomes president of Texas, and the first thing they do is they ask America to annex them or become part of that state. Please let us become part of the state. And America says, originally we say no. Andrew Jackson doesn't want to disrupt the sectional balance between state and slave states and free states. We eventually do take it because this idea of manifest destiny, like we want to own everything possible from sea to shining sea. Once we do that, the Mexican government withdraws its ambassadors and begins preparing for war. So the United States, wanting more land, almost tries to agitate or get Mexico upset with us so that we can take more of their land in a war. And this is going to lead to the Mexican-American War, which we're going to dive right into next class. As usual, questions, let me know. Have a good week, everybody.